Alright, so now I'm 33 miles into driving this thing today. The efficiency is still really bad. It's roughly a half a mile per kilowatt hour worse than what I would expect to see with my 2015 Model S 70D. We're getting 1.8 miles per kilowatt hour here in 24 degree weather, starting off at 8 degrees Fahrenheit this morning. That works out to roughly 520 watt hours per mile, and I would normally be doing about 440 to 420 watt hours per mile, maybe even better in these temperatures with my car. There are a few things I like about the ID. The interior is very comfortable, has a standard heated steering wheel, which is nice. You need Sub-Zero on the Tesla to get that. The steering turn circle radius is much tighter since this is a rear-wheel drive vehicle. Really like that. The steering weight is better, however the on-center feel's not very good, and it kind of has that electronic cogging feel on center, whereas the Model S has a very smooth, almost hydraulic feeling rack with a little bit heavier weight to it. The stability control on this is awful. It will not let you get any slip or any rotation at all. Not a fan of that. The regen is adjustable. It's set to no regen right now, which is smart in the winter because you don't want the rear wheels braking on like an icy curve. However, it's very smooth and unobtrusive when you're using it. With the brake pedal, I don't like how the climate control doesn't remember your settings. So if you start your trip, get out of the car with the heated seat and heated steering wheel on, when you get back in, you have to go back and turn them on. The infotainment does not remember the settings, and it does not remember the menu you were last in, so don't particularly care for that. But the steering is good and it's comfortable, handles very well. I don't really notice that it has drum brakes in the back, even though that's kind of tacky, but we're actually up to 1.9 miles per kilowatt hour. So follow up just before I finish my day to see if we can crest 2. Really hope we can. It has to be well below 0 degrees Fahrenheit for me to get this bad of efficiency in my car, so an interesting experiment for sure. It's actually a pretty good product, seemingly for the most part, but it's an appliance, and the infotainment and just the digital gauges are infantilizing you so much. It doesn't give you percentage. It doesn't give you really any data on the main screen at all. So I don't know. I'm really not a fan of the data transmission to me, but everything else, the product seems well screwed together, frankly. Well, as I'm finishing my day with the id.4, I hate how this thing constantly tries to lane nudge, especially when you're right by a semi and you don't want to be centered in the lane. But we did finish out at 2.1 miles per kilowatt hour. However, it's above freezing. It's 32 degrees Fahrenheit right now. There was a significant pickup in efficiency when we hit about 20 degrees Fahrenheit. So this is not a cold-blooded vehicle, but I do want to compliment it for its steering. Other than the on-center deadness, it's got some good weight to it. It's nice and quick, and the turning circle is excellent. So all in all, not a bad vehicle, but man, they've got some software work to do to this thing for sure with the screens. And honestly, with that done, I'm pretty happy with it. I think it's pretty good value, especially considering you get the full tax credit with a Volkswagen. Yeah, I'm curious to get back into the Tesla and do this all again tomorrow just to verify the results and the findings. But it's been interesting living with, a much newer and I guess lower in the stack EV for a day. I am surprised it wasn't more efficient, especially considering how underpowered the single motor is, which generally leads to better efficiency. So anyway, hopefully that was informative if you are looking at an id.4 or even an older cheap dual motor Model S. Back in the Model S, a quick stone cold 5-mile jaunt home, and so far still averaging far better. So we did 2.1 miles per kilowatt hour in the ID, and this thing over a similar number of miles on the same day did 418, which is about 2.4. So that 0.3 might not sound like a significant difference, but over the course of an entire battery charge, that's very significant. And it's actually quite a bit better even on this trip with a cold battery. So as the day progresses and the SoC lowers and the battery charge gets a little more stable, the efficiency is actually going up on this thing. So I know it's not an apples to apples comparison, us two driving these two vehicles, but it's still, I think, useful data just because we know our commutes so well and we know how each other's car reacts. So again, still a fascinating experience, but I immediately get into this and realize just how good the 2015 next-gen seats are, how much better the on-center weight is on the steering. This thing really does go down the highway like an old E38 BMW, which is very high praise. Other than that, it's nice to have actual data on the screen. And I don't know. It's still a good car, but the id.4 has a promising future if they can fix that cold bug with over-the-air software updates. So I had to wait a couple days for an equivalently cold day, but back in the Model S, we're still doing about, well, but somewhere between 415 and 460 watt hours per mile, which equates to 2.2 miles per kilowatt hour on a day where the id.4 would be doing about 1.7. So this thing is definitely more efficient in the cold, which is just strange because the motors are more powerful, the battery is lower tech. I just don't fully understand. And it's not like I have it freezing in here either. It's 74 degrees in here. All right, so here we are. Another very similar weather day to the id.4 test. I actually waited for a few days for the forecast to cool back down. I've done a few more miles on this trip than I did in the Volkswagen, but it is a little bit colder as well. And I'm still at 448 watt hours a mile, which for the id.4 owner, that's just over 2.25 miles per kilowatt hour. So on a day like today, we were seeing maybe 1.8, 1.9 at the end of the day. So I'd say we're getting pretty consistently 0.3 miles per kilowatt hour worse in the id.4 in the same weather and conditions, even going largely to the same places that we're getting in a 7-year-old Model S. So I'm not sure what's going on there, but I think a lot of it can be fixed with software updates, and I hope they do, because the tech really lets that vehicle down, and it's otherwise pretty good. I miss the heated steering wheel a lot in that car.